Good evening, internets, and welcome to another animation a day with your host, me, this guy over here, Turbos, Casey, whatever you want to call me. Today we're going to be looking at Appeal. And Appeal, as stated out by Frank and Ollie, two of the awesome Nine Old Men, the Disney founders of animation, describe it as a live performer has charisma, an animated character has appeal. Appealing animation doesn't just mean being cute and cuddly. All characters have to have appeal, whether they're heroic, villainous, comic, or cute. Appeal, as you will use it, includes an easy-to-read design, clear drawing, and personality development that will capture and involve the audience's interest. Early cartoons were basically a series of gags strung together on a main theme. Over the years, the artists have learned that to produce a feature, there was a need for story continuity, character development, and a higher quality of artwork throughout the entire production. Like all forms of storytelling, the feature has to appeal to the mind as well as to the eye. Okay, so we're going to look at that by mixing it up and making it a little more visually appealing, as it were, to the eye today. So I got this idea last night. I was watching a random video and they had something that sparked this train of thought. So like I usually say, keep your mind open all the time. Always be thinking creatively in how you can take stuff in your real life and apply it to your animation. Okay, so let's make sure that we're still recording here. We're getting into the file as usual. We are using Maya 2010, and this is the Goon rig that is brought by the folks over at How to Cheat in Maya, and all of that information for those programs and the rig are going to be down in the comments below. So definitely check that out if you want to mess around with them as well. So we're just setting up for this first initial pose. But we're going to try something different. We'll probably work with a little bit of constraints today, and those will probably be new to you guys as well. But let's just start off with the base animation, and then we'll get into the fun part that I think will be fun to mess around with today. Since we're talking about appeal, we want to really play up that this one might look more appealing, or at least a little different visual stimulation than usual. Excuse me, I'm just going to adjust the mic here. I did get a new mic, and we're going to have that all set up probably Tuesday or so. I spent most of the day getting that set up, and got a new mic, got a new mixer, all this new fun stuff to make the audio a little bit better. And then didn't have a mic stand, so attempted to make one. And if you guys want to see what that monstrosity looked like, leave a message and I might share that. It's pretty ridiculous though. So we're just setting up that first initial pose, and I'm not going to be too concerned with it right now, even though we're talking about appeal, and I'll show you why as soon as we get in there a little bit more. But first thing we're going to do, we're just going to build the foundation of the animation. So let's go ahead and save our file here. File, save as, and so I haven't quite figured out what title I'm going to use for that. I'm just going to put a default one, just punch in some numbers, and we grabbed everything and we just set a key. And so we'll take that foot and we want to raise that forward. I think we'll actually bring that back a little more. And go to 12 and put it forward. So let's see. And let's pull the hips back a little bit. And let's push the foot forward a little bit. I just wanted the steps to be a little bit wider than they were already. So sorry for any background noise. Like I said, I should get most of the audio stuff figured out. Hopefully by Tuesday we'll have a new audio setup. Okay, so we're just going to lay down the foundation of the walk, and when I say foundation, I mean really the nuts and bolts of just getting it from point A to point B. I think I want to make those steps a little bit bigger. I want to at least have a little gap between the 2 feet, so let's pull that back. Set there, and set that forward. And we'll have to go in and readjust the hips too, because I'm sure I won't like where those are ending up here. But one way to It's a good kind of visual gauge to your steps without having to go in the graph editor and see where they are, is to look at the distance between the 2 feet as they're going. And that'll give you a good, at least eyeball, so that you're kind of on the same spot with. Okay. I'm not going to even, yeah, let's just finish with the feet before we get into that. There we go. And that. And remember, S is just to set a key. So I'll just pop that bad boy in. You always want to remember, especially on the first frame, to grab everything and set a key there, because otherwise it won't save and you'll just be redoing your first key over and over and over again. Okay, so let's go into the graph editor and check out the translate and the hips. Make sure it's pretty balanced out. And I think we're going to play up these steps as well. Well, first of all, they're just sliding, so we definitely want to give some up and down to them. And rotate it back. And sorry, it looks like I have the mic a little too close to myself. So we're going to raise that up and drag it back. And go back to zeroing that out. And raise it up and drag it back. And go in here and raise it up and drag it back. Okay, so let's just see how that works. Again, I just want the nuts and bolts in here for what, then we'll get into what we're doing with it in a little bit. Okay, so let's add some up and down. On the passing position, bring it up and squash it down. 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 Okay, so let's see. And you might think that's a little too much on the upper body, so maybe we'll find a happy medium in between there. I do want that exaggerated though for this walk, and you'll see why in a little bit. Okay. Alright, now let's go in and do some side to side. We're going to favor over the foot that's planted. So the hips will sway over there, and this is the translate X. And it's always good to switch your perspective when you're setting up stuff, so it's just a little bit easier. And we'll go into the translate X in the graph editor, and go down here, and we'll balance that out. Hope you guys are enjoying these videos. If you are, remember to throw me a thumbs up. Leave me some comments if you have any questions or ideas or suggestions. I can subscribe to the channel if you like. And if you have shots that you're working on that you'd like an extra set of eyes on, definitely you can shoot them over to me, and we can either share them on the channel or you can just send you quick thoughts in private as well. I'm happy to do any of that. Now we're just offsetting the sway of the upper chest versus the hips, so we get a little squash and stretch and side to side there. And that's looking pretty good. Let's go back in and just balance those out a little bit. Just grab the rotate Z's, hit F to focus in on them, and that's pretty good. And let's go into the hips, and we'll go ahead and do the same thing here again. Just balance those keys out. Okay, it's just figuring out which hand pose I'd want to go with for the idea that we're going to be working on today. We'll see. We'll see. Okay, it's starting to work. Now let's add some rotate to favor the forward foot here on the hips. Rotate Y, pull it back, rotate Y, pull it back. And balance that out, and then we'll offset it by doing the opposite in the chest. And then I think we're going to switch to, what is it? To IK hands on this one too. So we'll get ready to do that, but let's do the offsetting. I just want to get the root controller and the chest controller working really well before we get into the different way that we're going to show off appeal today in our animation. I think we have a little too much rotate Y in the chest, so let's shrink that down. It's not going to look exactly right because we don't have the arms swaying yet, but we'll get to that. Okay, I'm going to want some more extra up and down and a little bit of compress and stretch out in the chest as well. So let's get into the up and down, and we'll exaggerate that. So translate Y, so I'll go ahead and pull those up a little bit, pull those down a little bit. Now let's get into the rotate X on the hips here. Pull it back, push it forward, pull it back, push it forward, pull it back, push it forward, pull it back, and push it forward. Okay, now we're going to offset that into the chest. So since it's pulled back, we want to not have the hips too much. We want to just add a little bit of compress. And I think actually I want to do the opposite where it's stretching out on the passing position instead of compressing, really. But we'll watch it and we'll see. Yeah, I want to do the opposite. So we're going to take, grab all three of those because you should usually move the spine as a unit. So with all three moving in conjunction with each other. Occasionally you can go in and tweak those, but for most of the time the appeal of more appealing movement in the spine is going to be when they're all three moving and rotating. Not necessarily all at the same time, but pretty close. So you can offset them maybe a frame or two. And let's see if that looks any better. And I think we wanted to do the something like that, right? No. Let's see. Let's see that, and it's squished. No, we want that to be straighter. So we'll lift it up a little bit and grab those and rotate X. And I'll stretch it back. So you can see it's more of a squashed here and a stretched out there. Not tons, but a little bit, so you should feel it now. And actually for this shot idea, we're going to need to have that chest bent over more than we have it as well. So let's get in there and move that around. So it's going to be rotate it, pull that back, and we're going to grab all of these and rotate them. You just want more squash on here, and you'll see why in a second. Now, since we did that, I want to tip the head over there, and yeah, actually be pretty close to something like that. And now we'll need to tip those hips back a little bit. Like I said, I do have two monitors that I normally work in, but I do try to keep a lot of the graph editor stuff up here so you guys can see it all right. And let me make sure that we're still recording here, but sometimes I have to adjust it just so I can see if that's the right way that I want that pose to look. Okay, so let's see. Okay. I like that. So I'm just going to save that with what we have it right now. And now we're going to go and we're going to create a cube. And let's go over to polygons, edit mesh, insert edge loop tool, insert edge loop tool, insert edge loop tool, insert edge loop tool. And now we're going to right click here and do faces. Actually, no, we want an object mode right now. And hit W, and we'll go up here, raise it up, and now let's switch over, just right click there and hit face, and grab that face, and we'll, let's see, let's go ahead and just delete it. Okay, that's fine. Just a simple box for what we have right now. But actually, let's do a little bit of extrusions here. So let's go back to edit mesh, insert edge loop tool, grab that, and okay. Go back to object mode, and now we're going to go to faces and highlight all of these. And now I am not the world's best modeler, don't worry. But we can do some simple stuff here that'll hopefully work to sell the idea that we have. And you'll see it in a minute. You'll see it come together. And we'll hit R here. Actually, no, we want to do mesh extrude. And then we hit R, and we can do something like that, just to give it a little more shape to it. And let's go ahead and highlight these, and we'll extrude these a little bit as well. Extrude just means to like cause them to bump out. And mesh, what about extrude? Hit R, and we'll give a little bit to there. And I'll just give a little more three-dimensional shape than just a flat box for here. And I know I did a cheat and just cut those out, but let's right-click and go back to object mode. We're going to select that. Let's see if we made it about the right size. Translate X, translate Y, and Z. Let's load it up here and raise it up. And now it'll look like, once we get all the constraints and everything in, like a little box going up and down. He's holding a little box. Let's shrink it down though. It seems like it's a little too big, and maybe a little bit taller. Kind of like the idea of it just being about like that. Okay, we're also going to create a new layer here and turn the visibility off on there so we can toggle that back and forth. Okay, so I'm going to turn that off real quick, and we're going to switch the hands over to IK. And grab that, drag it down. Now what I was checking earlier is, let's say I'm holding a giant box, and I'm trying to hold the outsides of it. I believe the more natural pose would have the arms reversed rather than this way. That feels more difficult if I'm carrying it. So I think the correct way would be like that. But either way really works, so we can do that. But this just feels a little more natural. So I think we're going to want the hands to have the fingers out and the thumbs behind. So that means we're going to have to rotate it something like that. Okay, and like I said, one good thing that don't be afraid, don't be chicken, just get up and act it out, move it, figure out how it's going to work. And something that I do with almost every walk that I do or every animation that I do. Okay, now we want probably be more in the fingers than in the palms, so we'll keep those rotated that way. Now let's do some, and this is going to be a little, just save that off real quick here. This is going to be a bit of back and forth till we find an exact kind of pose that we like with everything. Let's just turn the visibility on and let's see. You know what, just for the sake of this, I'm going to over-exaggerate and we're going to break these arms. You're not going to see them with the box over it anyways, and I think it makes for stronger sense to everything. Actually, let's do it the right way, and let's go back into the rotates, and we'll rotate that back, and squash that down a little bit more. The rotate X's. But you see why we went in and we did all that stuff with the hips and everything first? So that we could get that working before we even added all the flares and everything to it. Okay. Okay. Alright, so I think that's about how I want it. Now let's get some good hand posing and everything for it. And for that, I'm going to leave that open. Okay. I think this is going to be a little too big, so let's go ahead and squish it a little bit more. Bring it down. So I want to be able to see those fingers a bit more. So let's give us a bit more that way and a bit more of that. And just a little more back and forth. We're going to squish that up a little bit. I still like the length and everything of it, but we want to make sure we can get those fingers out so that we can have some animation there that we can feel and see from there. Okay, that's good enough. And again, no one's really going to be looking from that angle. Most of the time, like I would say, go through and make sure everything. But for the sake of this and for the sake of time and getting these things done, I'm trying to get them the ideas out and implemented to you guys so that you got about an hour-long video and you don't have like that marathon-long one that we had a while ago. But sometimes things take longer, so there might be episodes that are a little bit longer than the others. We got something like that. Let's see if we can get the thumb to show up there. It might be, yeah. So for that sake, we'll do it like it's just holding the inside of the box, and that's okay, because that'd be natural here. Now, one thing I will do here is go ahead and grab the face on this one and the face on this one, and hit R, and shrink those up a little bit, because I really don't like intersection in there. Okay. Now we could have kept the, switch back to object mode here. We could have kept everything in there instead of switching to IK on the hands, but I feel like we can probably get a little more, make the animation look a little better by using IK here. The nice thing with using FK though is that it gives you the accurate animation based off the movement of the hips and everything, so it's pretty fluid throughout. With IK, you have to go in and you have to key everything. So with FK, let's say my chest is moving this way, my hand will automatically, go this way if that's the movement I'm doing. But with IK, my chest moves this way, my hand's going to stay exactly in the same position that it was no matter what. There's going to be no influence from everything else. But for this sake, we'll kind of do that ourselves and then have it kind of delay in the box and everything, and I think that'll work. Again, I could be wrong. That's part of animation. Maybe it'll be a better way, or if you have a different way that you animate, definitely, leave comments below and let me know how you would have done this different. Or if you know an easier way to do it, or anything. But if you're just starting out, hopefully these will give you some tips and everything for you. Just trying to get some appealing poses, since that's what we're talking about is appeal today. We want to really make sure that we're getting something that looks good. But I think this is a fun little appealing idea, just to have a little guy hiding in a box, or sneaking around with a box, or carrying a big box, or lots of different ways that we can play it up. But adds a different setting just by giving one extra prop to this. One tip that an animation mentor of mine gave me, and his name is Mike Gassaway. Definitely look him up. He has a really cool, he worked on Jimmy Neutron and did a lot of the animation for that and was an animation director for it. I feel like this is still a little bit too wide, so let's go ahead and shrink it in just a little more. It means we're going to have to readjust that hand, but that's okay. Let us do a little bit of curl on this side, which again, probably from the perspective that we're going to do on the other way, isn't going to show up, but try to keep it as realistic as we can, and it'll feel better throughout. So anyways, the tip that, one thing that I really learned and gleaned from him was this thing called hold the coffee cup acting. And that principle is, let me get this thumb out of the way and then we can talk about that. I'll make sure that I'm getting it so it's not intersecting through there. That principle is that let's say you're acting in a shot and you don't really know like what to really do or how they would act in it, and you don't want to get too cliche going ooh, ee, like the cliche static kind of poses that you'll see in a lot of animation where all the time they're going, I think we should do this. Should we go over there? Which way would you like to go? But if you do something simple, and he calls it hold the coffee cup, and I don't have a coffee mug handy, but let's just say it's hold the remote. When you're talking and you're holding something, it gives you a unique pose because you have to be holding something at the same time. So it gives you something to do with that character. So he can talk and he can also fidget with it or something. And it's a different way to add intrigue or keep your animation a little more believable or full of life, or just a different way to split it up rather than having to always come up with the same, default hand poses that a lot of people use for especially beginning animators when they're first going in. So in this case, like I said, one of the things we're doing to add appeal here is to add a prop with it, and that gives us, the same almost vanilla style walk or something with a simple prop in there. Changes the whole setting, changes the whole way that the body moves, changes everything. So just a little tip that you guys might try out and do for yourselves. And we did resize the box a little bit, so we're going to have to go in and adjust this stuff here, and that's okay. And I realize they're broken here, and we might go in and fix that, but I like the positioning here. We do want to get these out without going over our allotted time, so I think we might keep that for now. But normally if this was a shot that I was turning into a studio or anything, I would definitely make sure that that wasn't going on. Okay, so let's see what we have here. And now it's going to be a little bit of the tricky part, only because I might have a couple hits and misses here with setting this up, so bear with me a second. What I did is I created a locator, and we're going to put that on the wrist here. And I believe if I set this up right, do window outliner. Do I have another cube? Oh, okay. you to, so select that and select the locator, and we'll hit parent, and then we do the locator, and we do the wrist, and we do parent. And then if that all set up right, should be that I move this, and the box moves as well. Okay, so what that was, we created a locator, and that lets us kind of have a link between the two things that we're trying to connect. So let's say I'm holding a pencil and this is my hand, and I want to hold this rather than just parent it directly to it. If we parent it to this little twist tie thing that I was using earlier, and we parent my hand to this and this to this, this allows my hand to move and us also to move the pencil within the hand, so you don't have to just do one static pose where just the wrist is moving and the pencil's flat. So that's a good way to approach things. But for the other side, we really want this hand to just follow along with the box. Ideally, I would create a locator and then do the same thing on the other one, but I kind of want this one just to react to what the other one is doing, and we'll just play up with a little bit of overlap and stuff into the I want to offset them for that first pose as well, so go ahead and go in here, and so we'll lead with that a little bit more. Okay, so I'll have sort of except that that would be more like that, and that would be forward more. Since that is the forward foot, that would be the behind hand. So I probably could have done something a little more like that. Want a little more space between there. And that's what doing that locator would add, so that we could adjust this while still having that work. Okay, so I'm going to grab this and select the box and hit P for parent. And then when I move this wrist, it should move the box and the other wrist as well. And it does. Okay, good. So that's what I wanted to do. Again, we'll just do a brief synopsis of how that worked. We created a locator under create and locator, and then put it up in the position where this wrist was over here. And then we parented the box to the locator by selecting this one, and then I believe it's shift clicking the locator and hitting P, and that parents them together. Then we selected the locator, which is this guy right here, and since those were already connected, then we shift clicked the wrist and we hit P to parent those together. Then once that was working, we grabbed the other wrist and then grabbed the initial box, because that's what we wanted to be working with, and parented that. So now if we're watching everything, or if we, when we're grabbing this hand right here, and we just move that hand, everything should be moving with it. Okay, now let's get on to where we were before. So set a key there, and we'll set a key there. Okay. And now that's really, flat with what it is. So now let's add some up and down on those, where it'll go down and up and down and up, down, up, down, and up. And let's just see how that looks. Okay, it's probably a little over exaggerated, and we'll play with the timing as well. Now it's times like this where I really wish I would have added a locator to the other hand, because I could have played up the animation a little bit more. So we'll just have to keep the fingers alive on that so that it doesn't look too staticky. But realistically, the hand shouldn't be slipping on that box too much either. It should just be gripping, so that should work all right. But I would have liked to be able to add a little more in there. So if I was gonna do this for a professional shot or something that I really was probably going to throw on my reel, I would go in and redo that as well. But again, I'm trying to keep these so that they're pretty simple and not too complex for everything. And if you have questions on how to do that, I still get confused with constraints a little bit, so don't get worried. You go ahead and leave notes or questions or comments or anything down in the information below, and I'll definitely try to write out that stuff. And otherwise, the How to Cheat in Maya book that I mentioned usually gives a good synopsis of that, so go ahead and grab one of those books as well, and that'll help. Okay, so let's see how that's looking. And let's try delaying it a frame. Now, let's see. Let's go one more frame. Let's try going the other way. So that would lead. Maybe one more frame. Let's see. I'm just going to keep it on the same for right now. If we need to, we can go back in and adjust it. I just don't want that box to be played up too much. Now let's go in and we'll add a little bit of, let's see, so we're over this foot, so we should swing that way a little bit. And we're over that foot, so we should swing that way a little bit. Now, one thing we have to be aware of when we're doing all this is that we don't get any intersection where the face or the body or the shoulders or anything goes through the box, so that's one thing. See, but this is definitely, fun to add a little bit of that to it. And now let's try doing a little bit of rotate. So right here we do a little bit of like rotate. Yeah, we should be able to do some rotate Z's on there. That should help. Rotate Z, rotate Z, rotate Z, rotate Z, and back to there. So let's see how that looks. That's fun. I like that. Boop, 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 boop. And maybe a little bit of rotate Y here. Well, we might have overplayed this a bit, so we might have to tone it down, but we'll see. I feel like that works pretty well. And let's go ahead and tone down that translate Y on the box here a little bit. Okay, let's watch it. Now, one thing that's cool is we should be able to go in and actually do a little bit on the box itself, so we could add a little bit of no, I don't want that. I want the actual box. Now, what we're doing here that's different is we were doing the controller that the wrist controller that was doing everything. It had all the parents and everything attached to it. So now let's go into the box, and since we did that locator, we should be able to key this alone. And what we can do then, and should be able to, is do a little bit of like overlap. So, and delay it like a frame. Now, one thing we have to look out for is that it's going to probably chop into those fingers, so we'll need to be careful of that. If you watch a lot of video game animation, you'll see a lot of clipping and everything. And if you want to be good and everything, you gotta look out for that stuff. And now, if we take that movement that we had and we delay it a frame, oh, looks like there's a new update for that. Should give us a little bit of, except it feels like it's getting too high up here and it doesn't feel as settled as it does on some of those other ones. Sorry, I didn't describe that very well. What I'm basically saying is the translate Y's on that box were too high up towards the later frames, and it looked like it was not as sturdily held by the hands. frames. Okay, so let's see how that looks. One thing maybe we could try is we could do this. And we'll see, maybe, let's go ahead and save off what we have. We'll grab all of the fingers and we'll have those bounce a little bit. Maybe we'll do those on 6s and then that'll allow us to drop the box down a little bit lower on those. So we're just going to accentuate the up and down on the box itself because we stretched out the fingers, so we shouldn't get any, well, we'll still have to polish it out, I'm sure, but that should help alleviate some of the intersection and clipping that would have occurred if we didn't do that. Dig down. Maybe that needs to go down a little more still. And we just got to kind of eyeball this while we're playing through to make sure that we're not, like here, that's cutting too much of that finger and you'll at least feel it if you don't see it. Now let's go ahead and watch it. It feels good. And you got a little bit of bounce in those fingers and everything. Now let's take, go back to, let's save again, and we'll go back into those fingers and we'll mix those up a little bit. So grab all the mid and tips here and drag them back a frame, then all the tips, and we'll drag those back a frame, and then we'll lead with the index finger and we'll follow with the little finger, and that should give us a little bit more movement and change of shape in that hand as well. Not a ton because we want it to look, but it should give a little bit of give and everything in there. Alright. Now let's see if that's too much movement. I feel like we could tone down the box maybe a little bit more. Maybe let's do it in translate. Oh, that's not pretty. Might have to go back into here. Translate X on there, that's fine. Okay, for some reason we must have keyed some values that we didn't want to. So let's pull that up. Go into the translate X, and we'll just clear all those out. Because we haven't really keyed anything that we wanted to on the translate X on the cube itself. We did some on the Y, and it looks like we got some of those, so we just weren't very careful with how we keyed that. It's definitely good to go in and re-clean it up, and that should help the way that it looks a little bit. Yeah, let's just tone down everything. It feels like it's still just a little too much. Maybe too much rotates. Too many rotates, even though it's fun to play with. It feels just a little too busy. The feeling's right there. I think everything's working okay. I need to do some more animation into the feet, that's for sure. And maybe we can do the hips really low so they'll stick out every once in a while. Just a little bit of the butt dip down. That might be a good idea to do, so it's not just the feet. Occasionally you'll see that. So we're just toning everything that we had down a little bit. I feel like it's all working pretty well, the idea at least. Now we just want to make sure that it feels pretty good. So let's see. It feels better to me. Still got a little wobble and everything in there. Now how would we get the butt to show up? Something like this. It'd have to be on the up positions then. So that would have to be kind of like, ooh, that might be a little bit too low. So what if we tried something like that? Nah, that doesn't look good. One thing we may have done a little bit too much of is it feels like it's too heavy forward there. It's pretty close, so let's go ahead and pull the translate back a little bit on that. Just a titch, I think is the right word there for it. Okay. So that. And I do kind of like doing it more from this perspective. I feel like we're getting a little bit too much. What if we even went in here and did something? No, it's not going to work. I was thinking we could play with the scaling a little bit too, but I think that would pull it too much. Okay, let's go into the feet and let's do some toes. So toe drag here, toe land, and flop down, and toe drag here, and land, and flop down. And let's go to the other foot and do the same. Set a key there, drag the toe back, lift it up when it's landing, and flop it down. Set that, drag it back. Oh, let's see. I think it's fun. I do. I think that's a fun shot. Now, one thing that I'm feeling is those passing positions on the feet are too far back, that the passing position of this foot should be a little more favoring the forward plant position than this back one. Not a ton, but a little bit. They just feel like they're slowing out too much rather than slowing in. So let's go ahead and set a key there, and go in here and set a key there. And clean up our tangents here a little bit. And raise it up just so it favors that next one. Clean up that so it gives it more of a slow into that position. Even it out and raise it up. Now let's feel how that foot works now. Alright, I like that. Okay, And let's go ahead and go into this foot as well and fix the translates. I'm getting a little bit of screen buffering that's bothering me, and so I'm gonna have to check this out once the video's done and make sure there's not something wacky going on. But I think it's just because I'm streaming the video and I get a little bit of blink on my cursor. So I think that's occurring the same thing in the box for some reason as well. So it shouldn't show up when we play Blast and everything, hopefully. So let's see, we just polished out those curves a little bit better and made them favor that forward position a little more. But I think that's an appealing idea. And we're going to want to find whatever good camera angle. I like to have a good layout and good staging. I feel like something like that works pretty well. Okay, and let's check our translate Y's. I feel like they're a little uneven. So we'll go into there. They're pretty close. Okay, then maybe it's our rotate X's that are a little off. So we'll grab both of those and balances that off. It was a little more accurate to what I was seeing maybe. That's why I'm seeing some difference in the feet. Let's see. Okay, so let's save what we're doing, and we'll turn everything off, and then we'll watch it a couple more times to see what we should fix. One thing that I'm thinking I might try, time permitting, is maybe drag the feet, have them drag back and then flop up, just to add some more looseness into there. And also we need to do something with the other side. That hand's a little too static, so we'll need to add a little bit of give in the fingers as well on the opposing side here. But overall, I think that's a good starting pose. We got enough space here that everything should be clearly red. Might turn it just slightly that way so that we get that, but I think I like here so that you see that there's some depth and everything there. The reason I was saying this way is so that you get a little bit of the silhouette on that hand would be a little bit better, but by doing it this way, you see that it's not like a straight line or anything. You see that there's kind of an overlapping, which gives a sense of distance, and the layout's a little better. Okay. Let's show those nerve curves again, and we'll turn this layer off. Again, we've got broken hands, but for this shot, since we got everything else going, we're not going to be too worried about that. Let's turn that back on. And let's go ahead and go back in. We got some intersection there on the thumb, so we'll go ahead and take that out. So let's get some better finger poses for this side here. Let's add a little spread there too. You know what, I think we'll do the same on this one. I got them grouped too much. So I'll just give a little spread in between. Maybe a little bit on the little. And a little bit of roll. And a little bit there. That's better. Okay, so I'm just going to go in the graph editor and make sure that I don't have any conflicting keys since I readjusted those. No. And no, that should be fine. Okay, let's go back into this side here. And we had those, which is nice. And we got to select the controller, which is there. And here. Now let's go back here and we'll set our key. Just make sure we don't lose that initial one here. We're going to grab all these controllers and have them crunch in a little bit there. And stretch them out. Crunch in. No, that should be the stretch out. Crunch in. Stretch them out. Crunch them in. Stretch them out. And crunch them in. Now let's see. Give us just a little movement in there. Okay, and let's go into the mid and tips, mid and tip, mid and tip, and mid and tip. I'll go ahead and delay that stuff one frame and go into the tip, 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 tip. And I'll delay that one frame, and index finger will lead with that, and little, I think we'll delay it 2 frames. Okay, now let's see if that still looks okay. Yeah, gives a little bit of life to it. Okay. So let's go ahead and turn off that layer, and we'll hide, oh, don't need the shot mask, hide our curves there, and let's see how we're looking here. I think we had our camera pretty close to set up like that. And a little space up at the top, and a little bit kind of like that. And let's watch it. Alright, I think that's a... We did a couple little bit, we tried a different number of things on this one. We messed around with some constraints and some locators. I did a little bit of modeling, real small amount of modeling, just to sell the idea. But we added definitely a bit more appeal to this one, so that it adds at least a different appeal to this shot versus our other ones. A different kind of look, a different kind of attitude, a different kind of character to this walk and everything too. We messed around with some timing here, worked on our layout, worked on our personality for it. And so let's just play blast this, and we'll just call it box walk just for the time being. And we'll see, make sure that there's nothing else that we want to go in and tweak there. Okay. And yeah, that stuff that I was seeing on there, that was just because I was streaming and doing that at the same time, so that should be cleared up. I was just seeing a little bit of flash and stuff on there. But I think with that angle, you can feel that there's weight. You can feel that there's, you know, some side to side and shifting because it's walking. Yeah, I think that overall the idea is selling. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this. Remember, if you like it, if you learned something, I hope that you guys at least are challenging yourself, getting more inspired. And if we switch back here to rendering, just hit render and render current frame. That'll give you a more high-res version of what you're doing. But I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something. I hope you're growing. I hope that you're inspired to work more and to learn more and to try new things, and to keep in mind throughout the day as you're working to add appeal to all your work, whether you're drawing, whether you're modeling, 3D modeling, or I guess, you know, runway modeling too. It's appeal is always something that you want to, just because you can create something, if it's not going to appeal to a lot of people, you know, that's always a choice too. Sometimes what's creative isn't appealing to everyone, but maybe it's just the focus on what appeals to you. But anyways, I love you guys all. You're awesome. Thank you so much for checking out the videos. And that being said, I think that we will call it a walk today. Okay. Have a great evening. Have a wonderful weekend. I look forward to hearing from you. Subscribe to the channel. And have an awesome, amazing, wonderful, super fantastic, epic day.